Thanks for listening to FPRN. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter. If you'd like to start your own show with FPRN, advertise with us, or donate to the network or to your favorite shows, check out our website at www.fprnradio.com.
Actively fighting for your freedom. It's Anthony Antonello on the FPRN Radio Network.
We're not trying to push financial reform because we begrudge success that's fairly earned. I mean, I do think at a certain point you've made enough money. At a certain point you've made enough money. You've made enough. I think you've made enough. At a certain point you've made enough money. At a certain point, I think you've made enough. You've made enough money. I think you've made enough.
Yo, the president is a socialist from Kenya, and it's evident he has a globalist agenda. The things he represents could ruin this country forever. The man is negligent, plus he's not that clever. Stupid voters should have chose a little wiser, instead of electing a community organizer, instead of electing a terrorist sympathizer, instead of electing another bold-faced.
Enough!
You wanna redistribute other people's papers? Go ahead and try that crap with rappers and ball players. And instead of cutting funding for the soldiers, why don't you...
And we are back. This is Anthony Antonello. You are listening to Silence is Compliance on the FPRN Radio Network, broadcasting live from the border of FEMA Region 2 and 3, Pittston, Pennsylvania. Syndicated across the country and across the planet, all over the internet, and knocking the mainstream media right out of the ballgame, completely making them irrelevant by speaking truth and bringing truth to power on a regular basis. This is what we do for a living, and this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of the rise of the independent media, and it's thanks to people like my next guest who just joined us here at FPRN Network, at the FPRN Network, who is extremely knowledgeable, who has been absolutely killing it on YouTube for a very long time, and the topic, I really wanted to talk about this because this is one of my favorite things to get into. And after listening to his first show, I really wanted to have him on and give him a full hour to talk about this and break this down. I know a lot of, because it's a very, very complicated issue, and he has a way of really explaining it because he has a very good understanding of what happened to your sovereignty, where we're at now, and you know what's going on. So, Dutchsinse, are you there, brother?
Yes. Hello, how you doing?
Hello. Thank you for calling the show. Welcome to the FPRN Radio Network. And how's everything going, brother?
Oh, it's going good. I appreciate you having me on. I was just listening to you before I came on. And these topics, you're right, they're just, to me, they're really intriguing just to know. But when it comes to explaining to other people or actually possibly being able to take action legally to change things, that's where I really get excited about it, and I like to talk about it. So I appreciate you having me on. And this isn't my area of expertise. Normally, I'm known on YouTube for the weather modification information and severe earthquakes, that kind of stuff, fracking.
Right.
But in my process of studying over the last several years, since my wake-up moment in 2006, 5, so I haven't been awake that long, really, if you think about it. But
right.
When I found out about the Bohemian Grove of all the places in the world, But that led me down a road to find out more about what's going on. And that's where our first broadcast on Freedom Frequency, we started to discuss it, and we ran out of time. So thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And that seems to always be the problem, time. And that's why I'm glad there are, so many people that are getting proactive. And 2006, I mean, you might not think that's too much, but I mean that you got, I would consider you a veteran at this point. You're looking at what, 9 years? Let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 years, something like that. I don't know. But you've been around a minute. So I heard you talking about, the corporate fiction, and like I've gotten into this a lot, and this is one of my favorite topics because it really explains it explains so much, and you had such little time to talk about it in that show that we're talking about, but you articulated it so well. I wanted to have you on and give you an opportunity to basically take the floor and talk about it. We'll have a break at the top of the hour at 8:00. I'm gonna hold you over till 8:30, and I would really like you to talk about that the best you can. Does that work for you?
Oh, sure. You know what? Just to start it off, you brought up the fellow in the courtroom who sees control of the courtroom, and
Right.
his name is Ernie Wayne Turtlegate, and I didn't even know how to spell that, but it's Ernie
Right.
Wayne Turtlegate. And for those of you who don't know, a fellow who's what we call a free citizen, a sovereign citizen, and we'll get into this and explain it fully so you can understand it. But a free American citizen was in court, and he, in essence, stood up for his own personal rights as a free citizen and stood up against the corporate structure that is trying to lay siege to him. Okay, and we'll have to explain how the government lays siege to you, your person, because the government is a corporation. And just like McDonald's hamburger is made up of multiple thousands of workers and executives, the U.S. government is the same way. When you say the U.S. government, it's not one person. It's a corporation. And so how can a corporation lay seizure to your person? Right? How can McDonald's arrest you, in other words? Okay. And the U.S. government has done a series of what we would call laws, quote unquote laws, that are established through an act. This goes back to the Civil War and beyond. It goes much further back than the Civil War. But the Civil War, we're all taught it's about slavery, which there is a portion of it that was. But what came out of the Civil War was that every American citizen was made a slave. Instead of the freeing of the slaves, which they were freed into general society, so they figured they can make more money off freed slaves than off slaves that are being held on a plantation that are not paying into society. And so the war between the North and the South, it boils down to money, it boils down to power, it boils down to something that my co-host on the show that's going to be debuting this Friday, Freedom Frequency 1871, goes back to a thing called the the Organic Act of 1871. And this comes after the Civil War, when the U.S. had to form what we would call, I would call, corporate offices. They had to establish a corporate campus, which they did in D.C., District of Columbia, and inside of the corporate campus, they built their corporate offices, the Treasury, the houses of government. And, of course, they existed beforehand as prescribed by the Constitution. But when that occurred, when the money was borrowed, now some people took issue with me online as to whether or not Lincoln actually borrowed any money from the international bankers, and I think that's been settled. And he printed a whole bunch of money, I think $450 million at the time, which is a lot. And there was another influx of cash, which we'll have to go into later. But this Organic Act of 1871 was basically like the first president, it authorized the first presidential orders. Like a CEO in a company would point to something and say, as the CEO, let's do this, let's sign off on it. That has been what the U.S. government has become. And so this free citizen, Ernie Wayne Turtlegate, has seized control of himself back from the corporate government.
Yeah.
And the way he did that, it's a long, complex process, but it has to do with your title and your name. And this goes into something I think a lot of people have heard of, which is your all capital letter name is a legal form of your name. You know, if you go to a court docket, it usually lists your last name first, followed by your first name, and then middle. Okay,
right.
And that's a way that they get you, so to speak. They're talking when you see your name in all capital letters. I don't know if any of you have ever started a company like a LLC or whatever, but when you do that and you get that paperwork in the mail, it's the same way. Your LLC, your corporate company, is spelled in all capital letters. They could type them in lowercase. I mean, you see lowercase right below there typed out in a sentence or whatever. But when they're referring to you, your person, like for me, everybody knows me. I'm Michael Janich. Okay, it's no secret my name. Michael Janich comes in the mail, and it's in all capital letters. Usually it's with my last name first, and all my bills are that way. All my credit card, all that stuff comes to my name in that way. Now, you can lay seizure, claim that name back from the corporation. The corporation is using you, your corporate entity that they created for you. You didn't go create an LLC in your name or a company. They did this, and they did it through a process that now involves your Social Security number. And your Social Security number is just a recent development out of this system that goes back a long way. But basically, your Social Security number could also be called your employee ID number or your prisoner ID number.
Right.
Okay. You know, you get ID numbers in prison, you get ID numbers at work, and you get ID numbers maybe at any government outlet. I mean, that's going to be the places that issue these ID numbers. And same with your credit card, guys. Your credit card number is just another form of a prison number. It's a way to keep you trapped inside of this structure that's been created for you. Now, they borrow money against you. Most people don't know this either. The way the government survives. How are they able to print their cash when it's not backed by gold? Who backs it?
Right.
You do. We do. I do. Everyone does. And they borrow against us. And they trade on us, too. They use our Social Security numbers to trade in blocks of people on backsides of the stock market.
Right.
And these are all documented facts. You don't have to take my word for any of this. You can go and easily look up and find EDU links, laws which explain it. And that's just the start.
So I mean,
I've been
so
talking for 10
basically, I don't know if I missed this part or not. Did you mention the birth certificate?
Oh, okay. Your birth certificate.
Okay.
Again, guys, there's so many facets to this, and this is a way that the state lays seizure to. This is the way the state takes children from their parents, quite frankly. And I don't want to, I know there's good instances where the state removes children from an abusive household, but there are. Your birth certificate entitles the state when you agree even to that birth certificate from the state, that makes you property of the state legally. Yeah. And this goes back all the way to ancient England. Okay. Right. And birth writs and signing
right
for
of passage.
Things under suretyship.
Right.
Now, that's why the government doesn't want there to be a lot of home births. That's why they try to scare women and going into the hospital and stuff, because you could easily have a child at home and not have it go through that identification process immediately. And that, some people, could you imagine if you didn't have a birth certificate? Well, you wouldn't be able to get a Social Security card. You wouldn't be able to get a driver's license. But that's the way they have it set up.
Right.
They have it set up that we are in that it's an entitlement for us, that it's a benefit, that we're not granted that as a right as a free person, and that's wrong. They've incorrectly framed that, but of course now that goes back to Ernie Wayne Turtlegate at the courtroom. Okay, he stood up, seized control, left, and he says, "We're out of here." And if you watch the whole video, they're jumping in their cars afterwards. They're like, "Okay, time to go," because who knows what's going to happen, right? And he was arrested later.
Right.
Okay. Now, he's out, and I'm sure he made bail and went through the appropriate legal process that anybody else would go through. But what I would call that is they brute forced him. Okay, so even though he has a legal, he's fully legally a free citizen, and he seized control of the courtroom, and the judge had to walk out in exasperation because there was no response that she could give that would not incriminate herself and the state for what he was saying. Because if he could do it and get them to acknowledge that what he's saying is correct, then any future case could be built upon that, right?
Right.
And so the judge bailed, he bailed, and then they got him later, and they brute forced him right into jail and didn't care what he was saying, just like you'd imagine Gestapo thugs would do. Okay, supposedly we're a nation of laws, but it's only if the laws are in favor of the government of the District of Columbia. And now, I don't know if you know this, Anthony. You probably do. I mean, you're very, very knowledgeable on these things. When they refer to D.C., like, for instance, I'm looking at a law right here, okay? It's 5 U.S.C. 7311, U.S. Code Section 7311, called Loyalty and Striking. And can I just read it to you real quick? It's only one paragraph.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. An individual may not accept or hold a position in the government of the United States or the government of the District of Columbia if he, 1, advocates the overthrow of our constitutional form of government, or 2, is a member of an organization that he knows advocates the overthrow of a constitutional form of government, or 3, if he participates in a strike or asserts the right to strike against the government of the United States or the government of the District of Columbia. Now, do you see, like, you hear how many times they've mentioned the government of the District of Columbia?
Right,
okay?
right.
And that was established through the Organic Act of 1871 when they established the corporate campus to do business from. And the reason they did that whole thing, the whole reason they established the corporate campus to do business from, is because they had to borrow money from international bankers to, and of course the bankers will not loan to a state, they will only loan to a corporate state, and that's how we got into the mess we are in today.
Yeah.
So if you want to stop the problems we're having, the first step is going to be abolishing the corporate campus where the business is done from.
Right. And you know what, before we even get into solutions, because I have questions and a couple of things I want to talk about, producer, see if you could let me know if you got that Alan West clip. Dutch, have you seen the clip of former Congressman Alan West where he literally mentions the U.S. corporation, and it blows my mind. I mean, now here's a guy I confronted, I think 5 times total, just on the NDAA, and I can't wait to run into him again because I'm gonna be all over him on this. But if you haven't heard this, okay, listen to tell me what you think of this. And to me, it's like, they know it. They put it out there, and I don't know if it's a slip of the tongue or they just don't care. But listen to Alan West make this reference. Go ahead, producer, cue that up.
Congressman West, is it time for the government to be shut down if the White House and Congress can't agree, in order to force the president's hand and compel him to do what we hired him to do, which is run the government within the confines of the Constitution and only with the money he collects from taxes and other fees?
Well, you're absolutely right, Judge. What we have to look at is the president is the chief executive officer of this corporation called the United States of America. Look, he told the vice president that he would be part of this budget process.
That's good.
Officer of this corporation called the United States of America.
Yeah. So,
wow.
Of this, have you heard that before?
I had not heard that before.
So what do you think of that, brother?
But that's just crazy that they're saying it openly and publicly. And
on Fox News, it's got huge ratings, and I certainly don't trust any of the main things, any mainstream media. That's besides the point. That's a whole other topic. But for the fact that he said that, and the way he said that, he is the chief executive of this corporation called the United States of America. I mean, are you kidding me? They and that didn't seem like a Freudian slip. It just seemed like he said it and didn't care.
He said it matter-of-factly in the course of a public conversation. It's true, guys. What is a corporation designed to do, guys? Just think about it. What does a corp do? It makes money. That's what it's designed to do.
Well, right. And why do you audience, think about this. What is one of the things, I'm not asking you because I know you can't respond, but think about when the quote unquote pre-selected presidents run, right? We need a president. I don't even like saying the term we, but we need a president that can run this country like a business. We run the country like a business. Well, where exactly do you? My first thought years ago when I heard this, I'm like, so what does that mean? Does that mean the people are the capital, and as far as money and running a business or the product? But you know what? The more especially when I learned about this corporate fiction and the straw man, I realized, wow, it makes total sense. This is why there's a hand running like a business, because it is a business.
That's right. It is a business, and I would propose that it needs to operate more like a nonprofit. If they want to do something, they need to raise the money beforehand via fundraisers like we do online. And they'll run into a brick wall really quick when it comes to building 100 B-1 bombers. And, that would prove again to the world that the money that we're using is being created. Because there's even if they took 100% of everyone's paycheck across the country, it still wouldn't pay for what they're actually doing. Just like a corporation, they wave their finger and say, send me the bill. Instead of a nonprofit, which would say, we need to raise the money to build the extra wing on the church, So that is the problem. Boiled down to a nutshell, guys, is corporations are designed to make money. And they're making money off us, off you and I. Right next to St. Louis, where I live in St. Louis, Missouri, there's a place called St. Charles. It's actually older than St. Louis. They just celebrated like their 225th anniversary of incorporation. And they had a big parade, and everybody celebrated. And I saw the advertisement on TV, and it said, the anniversary of incorporation of St. Charles. And I'm like, of course, incorporation. It goes back further than the start of our country, even. Really, it goes back to being able to do business. St. Charles was a trading hub for French, Spanish, even English, and they all used the Mississippi River in fur trading, trapping. And so I'm believing that the cities, that this move for incorporation to make money started long before. And it crept in and seeped in to our national government over time. So at first on a local level, people started doing it. Then on a state level, cities started doing it. Then states did it. And then finally, Big Brother does it. Big Brother forms out of all of that corporatism that was developed in the 17 and 1800s through the development of industry and trading. And so we did it to ourselves, honestly. If we want to lay blame, blame would be laid at the greedy feet of all the people who wanted to make money and form governments and townships and separate themselves out and form an incorporated township or unincorporated township. And now we are at that point where the corporate government is now out of control, just like a big corporation is, with no checks and balances. The checks and balances have been done away with through obfuscation, corrupt laws, even graft, payoff, and subterfuge, and maybe even some foul play. I mean, we really have a screwed up country, guys, and it's based upon this corporation. So there's a solution down the road, which we can get to in a little bit. The nonprofit does play into what I think could be done to try and fix the situation. But everything ties back to this. So like what I cover, weather modification, okay? Weather modification getting paid for by state and local governments, which are collecting money through taxes based upon this corrupt corporate system.
Absolutely, brother. Obviously, you hear the music. We are up against the break. But ladies and gentlemen, do not go anywhere. As you can see, this is one of the deepest conversations we've ever gotten into. And we still have a full hour left. This is Silences Compliance. I'm your host, Anthony Antonello, with Dutchsinse, also of FPRN Radio Network. So do not go anywhere. We will be right back.
911 emergency service. All operators are busy.
Oh God, please help me. He's got a knife.
You have reached the 911 emergency service. All operators are busy. Please stay on the line for the next available emergency operator. You have reached the 911 emergency service. All operators are busy. Please stay on...
911 operator, what's your emergency, please? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Last year in the United States, thousands and thousands of 911 calls went unanswered. And if you call from a cell phone, there's no way to pinpoint where you are. Yet politicians like Dianne Feinstein call for more gun control. We have one question. Why do these politicians have armed bodyguards? Can't they just call 911?
Now I'm covered.
Now for the first time, you can be covered. If you've been waiting to be covered in mandates, regulations, and new fees, the time is finally here. Sort of. So make some coffee.
I'm covered.
Approach life with reckless abandon. Kick your feet up. I'm covered. Because you're going to be in the waiting room for quite a while. But don't you worry your pretty little head off. First of all, it wouldn't be covered.
We're covered.
No, I said it would not be covered.
Now we're covered.
No, that's not... Yeah, I don't think you understood what I meant by covered earlier. It was a little bit ironic. Healthcare.gov is not responsible for fulfilling any of the expectations, mandates, legal requirements, hopes, or dreams of any users. Results may vary. Consult your Obamacare-approved doctor or pharmacist to find out if Obamacare is right for you. Current waiting lists to have your doctor chosen for you are unavailable and will remain so for the foreseeable future. Obamacare may cause wait times, a decline in healthcare quality, money loss, political activism, anger, despair, hopelessness, frustration, European envy, dependence, and nausea. If you discover that your premiums have gone up as a result of Obamacare, please note that the program is working as intended and refrain from complaining. Call your doctor if you experience anxiety for longer than 4 hours. If you wish to opt out of Obamacare for any reason, please start a multi-million-dollar business, join a union, or run for Congress.
Mr. President, members of Congress, you've been making a lot of noise about taking our guns away. But you might want to review history. 1835, Gonzales, Texas Territory. The authorities wanted to confiscate the big gun that protected that colony. You know what the people said? Come and take it. Because they were willing to fight for their freedom and their guns. So are we.
Come and take it if you want it. Come and take it if you think you can. Come and take it, but I warn you, you'll have to pry it from my cold dead hands. We want the freedom that God gave us, so you best not cross that line. If you want this gun, you gotta come through us and take it.
One shot at a time. Just like Gonzales, we're keeping our guns.
Hi, I'm Steve.
I'm Irene.
I'm Lisa.
My name is Tom.
I'm a graphic designer.
College freshman.
Stay-at-home mom with a full-time job.
Scholar on social policy and a barista.
And I'm just like you.
I'm an Obama supporter.
I support President Obama.
But the president needs your help.
Our president can't launch into another war without you. And remember, we promise to support him no matter what.
Together, we can do it.
That's why we here at the Americans for Whatever Barack Obama Wants, Did You Know He's Friends with Jay-Z, have launched a Kickstarter campaign to fund World War III.
And America is dead-ass broke, so our goal is to raise $1.6 trillion on behalf of the U.S. government.
That's where you come in.
Even a small donation would make all the difference.
When I first saw the president speak in 2008, in a YouTube clip posted to my Facebook page, I knew he was going to be right all the time. So I support World War III and IV and any moon war the president may want to start.
I mean, there is no way that he or the cabal of corporate interests, spy agencies, and shadow bankers that tell him what to do would ever mislead us. A $25 donation will get you a piece of rubble from a war-torn Middle Eastern country kissed by Senator Lindsey Graham.
A $100 donation gets you a day pass to leave your local refugee camp.
You'll probably end up in a refugee camp, but it'll have free Wi-Fi.
So please, help us reach our goal of $1.6 trillion so we can make World War III a reality. Why? Because Obama.
Because Obama.
Thanks for listening to FPRN. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter. If you'd like to start your own show with FPRN, Advertise with us or donate to the network or to your favorite shows. Check out our website at www.fprnradio.com.
Assaulting the media with the truth. Here's Anthony Antonello on the FPRN Radio Network.
It was 1913 on a Christmas day. Congress gave away its right to create cash. Now your money's only worth just what the bankers say, and you can lose your only shirt in just a flash. You see, the Federal Reserve is not a government thing. It's a bunch of private bankers we obey. And they don't answer to the people 'cause they pull the strings. And that's precisely why we have to say, hey, 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 fuck the Fed. Now, not too long ago, there was a president who tried. He was about to stick it to the lousy Fed. He made some legal tender, silver-backed in all its splendor. It's unfortunate.
And we are back. This is Silence is Compliance on the FPRN Radio Network, right on the border of FEMA Region 2 and 3, broadcasting live from Pittston, Pennsylvania. This is the FPRN Radio Network, and we are really getting into it here, talking about the loss of your sovereignty and how it happened and where we are going from here. On the line with me, I have Dutchsinse, who is breaking this down incredibly. Now, Dutch, when we left off, I was just about to ask you until I seen that we were up against a break. Now, when we talk about this corporation, okay, now, How does Canada, I don't know if you know the answer to this or not, but do you know how Canada plays into this?
On Canada, now we've got a European connection on Canada. Okay, we're talking going back to the British Crown. Canada is a unique situation. Okay, first of all, most people don't know about the wars that happened where the United States actually tried to push their way north and take portions of Canada. And there was a little kerfuffle that happened between the U.S. and Canada. And apparently the U.S. didn't do too well. And Canada stood up to the U.S. That goes back a long way. Now, the corporate structure of Canada is different than the United States. And I urge you guys, if you're on YouTube, you can go look up Canadian Court Free Citizen is what I guess. I don't know the French term for it, but you'll find a series of Canadian citizens that take over the courtrooms.
Well,
in Canada,
yeah,
completely.
and actually, I have a clip right here, and I figured I'd play it for the audience and get your take on it.
Sure.
You know what? I think that sounds like a good plan. Producer, go ahead. Cue up that clip, and I'm sure Dutch probably saw this, but go ahead.
Just wait. Key. I'm here to correct a mistake by the court. Well, first of all, the court has made a mistake. Are you Wilfred Keith Thompson? No, that's not what I normally go by, no. Can I see the information? Petition activity in terms of person legally speaking, so. I've tried to clarify this a few times, but apparently the level of the topic. So your name is Keith Thompson? My name is Keith, that's all. Nothing more, nothing less. You don't have a last name, sir? I have a family name, clan name, but that's irrelevant today. So you are not Wilfred Keith Thompson? Okay, one more time on and for the record, I am Keith. Nothing more. And sit down, sir. I'm looking for a Wilfred Keith Thompson. Please sit down, sir. Actually, please sit down, sir. Sorry. Can't do that. I served into the court this morning. Sir, I'm looking for a Wilfred Keith Thompson. Bailiff, you are not that this person. Sit down, sir. Bailiff, please remove this gentleman from the courtroom. Thank you. That's the person you're looking for. Please, sir, that is the person. I'm trying to remedy things. Touch me and you will be tried. I'm a peace officer. You want to dishonor a court official?
The defendant's on the bailiff's desk.
Sir, are you here on behalf of Mr. Thompson? I said I was the administrator to that account. Are you here as agent for him? Could you guys please back up? Thanks. Are you here as agent for him? Not as agent, as administrator, much like you are administrator of this court. Sir, you're either him or you're here as his agent to speak on his behalf. Are you either of those? Yes, it's all. Pardon? Yes, he's in common law jurisdiction, which I established as soon as I came in here this morning and reestablished again. The bailiff understood me. This other bailiff, wherever she went, she understood me as well. And this gentleman doesn't like talking. We're going to take a recess. Thank you.
Thank you. All rise.
How long? How long, sir? I don't have all day. Thank you. I have things to do.
We'll take the court.
Yeah, actually, please note that the judge has abandoned the court. He's abandoned ship, and I, as the sovereign in this room, claim authority. Case dismissed with cause and prejudice. Have a nice day. See you later.
I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it. And, you know, this is why this is such a big topic to me is, I mean, it's an absolute word game. And they were trying to get him to submit basically by saying that he was this person, you know, like in my case, are you Anthony Antonello? No, I am Anthony acting as a third-party administrator for this corporate strawman that you are, you know, considering Anthony Antonello, that you have created to, you know, as my legal fiction. And have you ever heard the story about the guy who just about beat them with you know, that word game back and forth with the toothpick in his mouth? Have you ever heard that one, Dutch?
No, I haven't. No.
And I want to look more into this because I mean it's so off the charts that I really do want to. I'm going to spend some time looking into it, but I heard this story a long time ago when I was researching into the whole sovereign thing. And as you've seen in that video, that's why I asked you about Canada. What it was it was a word game of them trying to get him to admit that he was, you know, the full person, like me, Anthony Antonello. He was saying, no, I'm a third party entity here on behalf of Anthony. I'm just Anthony. That's it. And what they do is that's why they kept saying, you know, please sit down, sir, because if he sat down, if he took their orders, then he immediately would have been rendered under their jurisdiction and they would have owned him. But because he never gave in, he ended up owning that courtroom. Now there's a story that goes basically along the same lines where it went back and forth between the judge and the person pretty much owned the judge and was walking out of the courtroom. He had a toothpick in his mouth, and right as he was about to walk out of the courtroom, the judge said to him, sir, show some respect and take that toothpick out of your mouth as you talk to me. Now, he wasn't following her order, or his order, but what he did was to reply to her in his, I'm sure it would have been the appropriate thing. He took the toothpick out of his mouth to speak, and when he did, they used that as him following her orders, and thus he ended up putting himself under her jurisdiction and ended up losing all of it. So that's why I tell people, I'm like, this is a real complicated thing. You know, when you talk about the flags that are in the court with the gold fray that has to do with the admiralty jurisdiction. So, I mean, there's so much to it, and I'm so intrigued by all of it. But that's why I asked you about Canada. Have you ever seen that clip or no? The one I just played.
I had never seen that. It's very interesting. There's several clips of people seizing control of the courtroom through their free citizenship, through their free identity. You hear two words that just got said, guys. One was admiralty, and then you just said that. And in the clip, They said abandon ship. Okay.
Right.
Now, this goes back, and I said it goes back, a long time. We're going back to ancient, well, not ancient, old admiralty, maritime law.
Yeah.
Law on the high seas. Okay. We're talking the captain that can make you walk the plank. We're talking mutiny on the Bounty. Okay. It goes back a long way.
Yeah.
And where law was established on the high seas because it was a lawless place and they were exploring to the edge of the world. And we had three corporate entities from Europe mainly, or four if you want to count Portugal. You've got Portugal, Spain, England, France, and the Dutch, all creating corporate entities that went and laid seizure to the New World. Okay, the East India Company, we've got, and then the corporate structure of those states themselves, which were monarchies at the time, all created their own ventures, quote unquote, to go to the New World. And that's where the United States came from. It was a combination of French, English, Spanish, Portuguese that came across, and they divided the country up. And as we know, a certain portion was purchased from the French, a certain portion was purchased, a certain portion was taken from the Indians and killed. You'll notice also Indians, that's a good example for people who are truly free, were one-name individuals. Right? I mean, they were like, Geronimo. Okay. So you've got, free people with just their moniker. Sometimes it could just be a mark. It could be a name. It could be a symbol or a saying. The way they lay seizure to you guys, you heard the judge in that clip. It's a very fine, it's a ballet dance of trying to get you, if you're representing yourself, to slip up. And if you've declared yourself free and you've gone through the process of notifying your attorney general in your state and laying seizure to your account, publicly declaring these things, they will mail you things and try to get you just to bring it in your house from the mailbox. And if you don't just send back, return to sender, this person does not live here, you're associating yourself through an ancient process called suretyship. And suretyship goes back through the Dark Ages, where landowners would send goods to other areas, and the landowner's a rich, wealthy guy. He hires someone or sends his slave to take the goods to point B. And at point B, they sign for it, collect payment, bring it back to the landowner. Okay? So we're talking basic money transactions here based upon this concept of signing for something. And that's where all our laws come from money laws. If you go back far enough, of course, you've got your criminal law, but a large portion of our court system and all the laws that are developed are all based upon this corporate structure. Did
we get into how your average person would recognize? Did we get into the all caps? I know we're trying to cover a lot of ground here in a short amount of time, but basically how you would know the difference between your third party strawman entity versus you as a human being. And there's a difference between a person and a human being. And when that's why from your birth certificate on, social security number, all of this stuff comes in all capital letters. That is your third party straw man. That is your what the corporation has created for you, and that's where basically what they're trading. I don't know if I'd say basically or literally what they're trading on Wall Street. But this is what we're talking about. Am I right, Dutch?
It's your employee number, guys.
Right.
We're all familiar with working places. It's your employee ID, and if you allow the corporation to name you, then you belong to the corporation. And you'll notice that the U.S. codes, U.S. code this, U.S. code that, codes. All right. This goes back to law versus code versus ancient English law. The codes are more like rules, not laws.
Right.
We should refer to them as rules that Congress sets. They're not laws. They're rules for the corporation. Congress ceased to exist after the Civil War. Okay, and the new Congress, the new United States, formed the District of Columbia, the corporate offices, where all states must submit to the federal. That was what the war was about, guys. And it was about whether or not federal trumps state. Up until that point, there was a seesaw going on in our country, whether or not the state was going to be some giant corporate entity. And the landowners and all the people that were making money in this country up until the Civil War got caught in the middle, because there they are. They have their corporations, which they're using slave labor for to maximize profit, and that bled over into the government. And they decided to make us all slaves. Yeah. And I'm not joking. They really did make us all slaves. Everybody now has to pay taxes. Yeah. Everybody now has to you go get your driver's license, pay your driver's license fee. When you declare your freedom, and you can find hundreds, if not thousands, of people who have gone through the process, I wouldn't even know where to begin to tell you to begin, other than that I know there's a series of forms that have to be filled out on a local and state level to notify certain legal authorities in your state that you are declaring yourself free from that straw man and laying seizure to everything that they've done in your name without your permission. And there is a legal rigmarole that you can go through that people do this and actually declare their freedom. They drive around without license plates on their car. They don't have a driver's license. They get pulled over, of course, guys. Don't get me wrong. They're still going to get pulled.
Oh, yeah, I know. But that's once again, it comes down to the words. The cops will pull them over. You were driving. No, sir, I was traveling. As a free man on the land.
And sometimes you'll get the cop that just brute forces you. Who says, "I don't care. You're going to jail."
Right.
And then you go in and you, of course, go through a huge legal process where you have these huge blow-ups in court where the court won't hear you and tries to get you to mess up. And that could be anything from just, driving without your license. But you wouldn't need a license because you've declared yourself free from the corporate structure, which my driver's license, when I look at it, says my name in all capital letters, and so should yours. Everybody's should. Right. Same with your passport. Same with any government-issued ID, any bill that comes to your house, all refers to this straw man that they borrow against.
Right. Yeah. And when I first found out about this, this was one of the mind blowers of all time for me. And, it made so much sense. And, there were so many people that explained it in different ways. And, have you ever heard Jordan Maxwell talk about how they used they said because you were born and you came from your mother's womb, that was the reason that they were able to classify you under, admiralty jurisdiction, and because it was through the waterways, and that was the canal. And he makes this really good case, and it goes along with everything else that we talked about. And it's crazy when we realize that I would say all of it, but a lot of this stuff is hard to prove. But we have enough proof now to at least say that yes, we are wage slaves, owned by a corporation, and they do everything they can to give us the illusion of freedom so we don't fight back. Because if people knew they were straight up slaves, they would revolt. They would try to resist. And that's just not the case. They trick people into thinking that everything's fine, go back to sleep. Every 2 to 4 years you're going to get a chance to cast a vote, and, you might be able to get some change, and everything's a show. It's a fraud. It's a joke.
I agree. You bring up the elections. That's another shell game that's happening on with us, guys, is when we have Democrat and Republican and they don't allow third-party candidates, okay, you've got independents that are starting to pop up locally and on state level, of course. But when you see that you're only given two choices, and those two choices are what's determining the leading of our corporate structure, it's just like a corporation, okay? So when you only have two choices, that dramatically reduces the power center. Okay, so the people that are in the power center, the people that are running this corporation, have gamed the system, going back again to the mid 1800s. Lo and behold, what do we have? We have the formation of Democrat and Republican out of one party. We had one party to begin with that then split into two. They had like an infight. I'd say it was planned personally, but they supposedly had an infight where the party split and formed into conservative and liberal. And that then leads us today to our Democrat and Republican after a long series of events. But they both came from the same party, which means that really you're only being given one choice from the same party that has both sides of the spectrum covered. And these people know this. I'm sure the wake-up call happens for Mr. Smith when he goes to Washington and he finds out that the United States government is a giant corporation that is not caring about its citizens at all. And that the whole constitutional concept of we the people coming first and rights is baloney. And it's just presented to you like icing on a cake. And the cake underneath is rock. I mean, we're talking, it is the icing on a cake to make you think that everything's cool.
Right.
I'm trying not to dumb it down to you too hard, but I mean, really, guys, that's what it boils down to.
Right. Everything is okay. Go back to sleep, you know? Mm-hmm. And I mean, that it is what it is. And that's why people like me and you do what we can. And, you know, I feel an obligation to try to inform people of what, you know, the situation we're in. And, I mean, especially when you look at history and you see what they've done and so many declassified things. And I just don't understand why so many people will accept history knowing about all the lies. But when it comes to modern day, like things that happen at present, they're not likely to accept that. Because it's in real time, and it's like, really, with more technology and with getting this down to a science, do you really think they're gonna stop that? They're gonna just give up their control? I mean, it's no, absolutely not, and that's why we need to keep doing what we're doing. Dutch, we're up against the break, brother, and you know I really appreciate you coming on the show. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we part ways tonight?
Yeah. Guys, you know, solutions to this are going to be. It's going to take a long time for us to figure out how to fix this problem. That's where the radio show that I'm starting up this coming Friday. Thank you for having me on FPRN. It's Freedom Frequency 1871, going to be on 8 to 10 p.m. on Friday nights here on FPRN Radio. And we're gonna fully discuss this over the course of weeks and months, because that's how long it takes to really get through this stuff. And come up with some solutions. I like the idea of government being forced, like a constitutional amendment, to be forced into a nonprofit. Make it illegal for governments to form into corporations. Why not? Right. Why not try it? They'd have to raise the money beforehand. Everything would go kaput. You know, that might be one solution. So, you know, just guys, don't lose hope, because once you identify the problem, then we can come up with solutions. And, you know, the first step to admitting that is admitting that you got a problem. Yeah. And this is a problem.
Absolutely. Well, Dutchsinse, check him out on YouTube for sure. Make sure you tune in to his radio show that is now on the FPRN Radio Network. And Dutch, I definitely want to have you back on, and, you know, vice versa. No matter how we have to do it, I want to continue this conversation, because like I said, it is extremely interesting. It's extremely important, and I want to talk to you a lot more about that.
You got it. No problem.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for coming on the show, and I will talk to you soon.
All right. Cheers, mate.
All right. Same to you, brother. And there you have it, guys. That was Dutchsinse of YouTube and now FPRN Radio Network.